According to the suit, Watson stripped naked in the woman's apartment and asked for a massage before sexually assaulting her.
New allegations have emerged for Deshaun Watson, and his career might be over. The quarterback was once an elite top 5 QB, but in this past Week 1 game against the Dallas Cowboys, he looks like he lost it. Meanwhile, Baker Mayfield, the quarterback who the Browns disrespected, is absolutely lighting up the scoreboard with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're gonna break down this rough situation. What everyone forgets about Deshaun Watson is before the allegations, before the multiple lawsuits about his inappropriate massages, Watson was trying to force himself off of the Houston Texans. Before the 2020 season, head coach / general manager Bill O'Brien of the Houston Texans had shipped away Watson's favorite weapon, DeAndre Hopkins. He was sent to the Arizona Cardinals for running back David Johnson and a second-round pick. Pundits flipped out at the time that Bill O'Brien got so little for what was considered one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in DeAndre Hopkins. However, Watson did handle this news well, and that is because he got a massive contract before the 2020 season. The Texans would go on to have a terrible 2020 season, and Bill O'Brien would be fired in November. But Deshaun Watson still had a good year statistically. What really pushed Deshaun Watson over the edge and made him unhappy is when the Texans acted like they were going to consider Watson's input on the new general manager, but instead, they never even considered the candidates he advocated for, and the Texans went on to hire Nick Caserio as their general manager, another Patriots way type guy like Bill O'Brien. After this debacle, sources close to Deshaun Watson said that he wanted out of the Houston Texans. And after about a month, Deshaun Watson would officially request a trade from the Houston Texans in late January of 2021. It is important to highlight this information before we get into what we're about to talk about next. Most of you already know about Deshaun Watson's civil litigation that alleges misconduct during massage sessions. But what most people forget is that in 2022, the New York Times revealed that the Houston Texans enabled Deshaun Watson's behavior, including setting up massage appointments, helping him with NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and even providing facilities for the massages. So January 2021, Deshaun Watson requested trade, and literally 2 months later, in March of 2021, he is hit with over 22 civil lawsuits alleging inappropriate behavior during those massage sessions. Now, I am not trying to paint Deshaun Watson as a victim at all whatsoever here, but the Houston Texans clearly knew what they were doing. The Texans enabled Deshaun Watson's behavior when he was on good terms with their football team. And the timing of these lawsuits is very suspect because it's literally 2 months after Watson has a falling out with the Texans. So after the allegations, the Texans had Deshaun Watson sit out for the entire 2021 season. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns were having their former #1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield, play with a torn labrum on his non-throwing shoulder during the 2021 season. And behind the scenes, according to Mayfield, they assured him that he was part of their future plans. Obviously, Baker Mayfield struggled in 2021 while playing with this injury, but he thought he had assurances with Cleveland. But instead, the Browns would dump Baker Mayfield in the 2022 offseason and trade with the Houston Texans for quarterback Deshaun Watson. This is when the viral clip emerged of Baker Mayfield talking about the fact that he was disrespected.
I feel disrespected, 100%. Because I was told one thing and they completely did another. That's what I'm in the middle of right now.
More recently, Baker Mayfield has confirmed the shoulder situation while playing with the Cleveland Browns.
I played 2021 with a pretty much torn apart shoulder.
And this same trend of forcing a quarterback to play while injured would occur also with Deshaun Watson later on. The trade for Deshaun Watson was a massive haul. The Texans received 3 first-round picks, 1 third-rounder, and 2 fourth-round picks, while the Browns received Watson and a 6th-round pick, which eventually became Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Not only did the Browns give up draft capital, but they also signed Deshaun Watson to a record-breaking, fully guaranteed guaranteed contract. And later on in retrospect, it is clear the Houston Texans won this trade. But here's what I do not like about the owners of the Houston Texans. Remember how earlier I told you that the New York Times reported that the Texans enabled Deshaun Watson's behavior, helped him set up some of those inappropriate massages? Well, in 2024, just recently, the Houston Texans ownership had the audacity to mock this trade between the Texans and the Cleveland Browns.
Thank a Brown. Have you thanked a Brown lately?
I thank them for coming and getting their tushes beat. Yeah, in the playoffs.
I thank him for all of our players.
2002.
The Texans ownership tries to act holier than thou, but they are responsible, just like Deshaun Watson, for those inappropriate massages. But they are NFL owners, rich-ass billionaires, so they're not going to have any consequences. And they get to just laugh about it now. So due to Deshaun Watson's massage allegations, where he specifically liked getting massaged in the glutes, a little sus if you ask me, he went on to be suspended for 11 games during the 2022 season. Keep in mind, Deshaun Watson did settle with the 22 lawsuits that were filed against him. Watson claims to this day that he did nothing wrong and all of the acts were consensual. And also, 2 grand juries in Texas did not find Watson guilty of any crimes. They said there was not enough evidence. So these are all still technically allegations. In 2022, Watson was able to start 6 games towards the end of the year, and honestly, he showed promise for the future. He had a great 3-touchdown game against the Washington Commanders, and he even beat his former team, the Houston Texans. Meanwhile, Baker Mayfield bounced around from the Carolina Panthers and eventually started the second half of the 2022 season for the Los Angeles Rams. 2023 was supposed to be the year that the Deshaun Watson trade bared fruit. He had settled all his litigation, and he was healthy and ready to go for week 1. However, after starting out 2-1 and going into week 4 of the regular season, Watson would end up on the injury report and would be inactive against the Baltimore Ravens. This is where things get sketchy between Watson and the Cleveland Browns. Watson was told he had a micro tear in his rotator cuff in his throwing arm and that it was no big deal and not at risk of developing into a further more significant severe injury.
Is there any risk that a small tear could become a harsher tear, which would require then surgery and you'd be lost for the season? Is that part of your thinking process that something like that could possibly happen?
Not that I know of. They said it wasn't anything worse than a strained rotator cuff.
And this is where we see Deshaun Watson and head coach Kevin Stefanski start to contradict each other about Watson's injury. In the following week, Stefanski would pull Deshaun Watson out of a game against the Indianapolis Colts. Supposedly, Stefanski wanted to protect him even though Watson was medically cleared.
My job to make tough decisions. I just felt like I wanted to protect him. I did not want to see him get hit. He was hit hard, and I know he cleared all that, but I got to protect him.
But in that exact same press conference, Watson would contradict Stefanski, saying that it was a medical decision to pull him out of the game, as if he was not medically cleared.
It was just a medical decision with the staff and everyone that's part of making a decision.
It became obvious that the Browns were not willing to be straight up about Deshaun Watson's health. They were not giving a clear answer. This is the same franchise and the same head coach that had Baker Mayfield play in 2021 with a torn labrum, assuring him that they were still all in on him, just like we mentioned earlier. So why should we not assume they're being irresponsible with their quarterback's injury status? Watson would return after missing 4 games and pick up 2 victories, one against the Arizona Cardinals and another against the Baltimore Ravens in a big-time comeback victory, where he looked like the elite Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans days, completing 100% of his passes after halftime. But Deshaun Watson's shoulder would be re-injured in this Ravens game, and an MRI test was done, and the next day, he was officially placed on injured reserve. Deshaun Watson was in disbelief.
It's very tough.
The Browns went on to sign veteran quarterback Joe Flacco and reach the playoffs. Flacco would throw for over 300 yards multiple times, something Watson has not done once as a Cleveland Brown. However, in the 2024 offseason, the Browns opted not to re-sign Joe Flacco and instead signed the former Saints quarterback Jameis Winston and also continued to roll with the young QB out of UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Deshaun Watson was hoping to redeem himself in 2024 after recovering from surgery. The Browns' first true test would be against the Dallas Cowboys at home, but there were some red flags entering this game. Deshaun Watson had not played in one preseason game during the 2024 season because he had been dealing with some arm soreness. Remember, his shoulder injury from 2023 was on his throwing arm, but he was cleared for this week 1 game against the Cowboys, and it was an absolute disaster for Deshaun Watson. It even led to Cleveland Browns fans booing Watson multiple times during the game. But to be fair, the Browns were missing their 2 starting tackles, and Deshaun Watson had to run for his life every single play. Watson was sacked 6 times and the Cowboys won 33-17. Watson had 169 passing yards, and the newly highest paid quarterback in the NFL, Dak Prescott, well, he had 179 passing yards, not too much better. But despite all the excuses for Deshaun Watson, he still did not look like that quarterback that was deserving of that record-breaking contract that he signed with the Browns 2 years ago. Meanwhile, in week 1, you saw Baker Mayfield against the Washington Commanders absolutely light up the scoreboard and throw for 4 touchdowns. It makes you think, what could have been? How would the Browns be today if they would have just kept their quarterback that they drafted, Baker Mayfield, instead of screwing him over and making a play for Deshaun Watson? But for what we know, based on Watson's contract, the Cleveland Browns are stuck with him. It's fully guaranteed, and he is locked in on their roster until 2026. There's nothing Browns fans can do. That is until everything changed 24 hours after this loss against the Dallas Cowboys. This was absolutely unexpected. History is repeating itself for Deshaun Watson. Just like the timing was convenient when Watson was hit with litigation after requesting a trade from the Texans, the timing of this new lawsuit for Deshaun Watson is very convenient for the Cleveland Browns. Watson has been hit with new allegations from an incident in 2020, but these allegations are so damning that there is no way he could come back from this.
The newest lawsuit accuses Watson specifically of sexual assault while on a date with a woman. According to the suit, Watson stripped naked in the woman's apartment and asked for a massage before sexually assaulting her.
This is dramatically different than the massage allegations that he had previously. The massage allegations only allege misconduct, not actual SA. However, the latest allegations for Deshaun Watson are civil, not criminal. The victim is only seeking compensation from Watson, not jail time for Deshaun Watson. And this is why the NFL is not currently putting the Browns quarterback on the commissioner exempt list, because it's only civil. The NFL is set to do their own investigation to see if Deshaun Watson violates the personal conduct policy agreement. Let me just say, if these allegations are true, Deshaun Watson deserves absolutely no sympathy. But I know these NFL owners are not angels either, and the timing of this lawsuit is just way too convenient for the Cleveland Browns because it opens the door for them to get out of Deshaun Watson's contract and completely void his guaranteed money. Remember, his original contract is fully guaranteed, the first ever in history. According to Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio, who retrieved Deshaun Watson's contract, his contract is voidable if he did not disclose this potential lawsuit prior to signing the contract. Remember, this incident did happen in 2020. If Watson is suspended by the NFL, the Browns could straight up get out of his contract. They would be free of paying the real cash of his fully guaranteed dollars. The Browns would still incur a cap charge, but they could still find a way to manipulate the cap, and that is still a better scenario for them than actually paying Deshaun Watson's contract and giving him real cash. Obviously, the Joe Flacco experience proved to the Browns last year that they could be performing at a higher level than with Deshaun Watson and by wasting less money. The timing of this lawsuit, the severity of the allegations, just shows that Deshaun Watson will inevitably be released by the Cleveland Browns and his contract will be voided. Like I said earlier, if these allegations are true, he deserves no sympathy. But I also do not think these NFL owners deserve any sympathy, like the owners of the Texans, like the owners of the Browns. And the Browns technically did agree to pay Deshaun Watson that fully guaranteed contract. Clearly, this litigation benefits the Browns, and the timing of it is suspect. And honestly, Browns fans also deserve to have to deal with Deshaun Watson's contract and have to watch their franchise pay the rest of it because they did not care at all about the Watson allegations when they thought he was going to help their team. You even have Browns fans here with this sign that says happy endings are not illegal, literally mocking the Deshaun Watson allegations. So let's not feel bad for Browns fans either. The easy, lazy takeaway would be to just say Deshaun Watson's a piece of shit, he deserves to lose all his money, and yeah, maybe he is a piece of shit. Maybe he does deserve to lose all his money. But ask yourself this, if Deshaun Watson was performing at a very high level right now for the Cleveland Browns, do you really believe this would be happening? The Houston Texans reportedly helped him cover up his dirt in the past. Why would the Cleveland Browns not be doing the same thing? And the Cleveland Browns knew the types of allegations that were against Deshaun Watson before they traded for him from the Houston Texans. So I'm not naive enough to think that the Cleveland Browns just care so much about having good people in their locker room. But my final point is that once the R word is associated with somebody, their reputation is tarnished, so it is truly over for Deshaun Watson. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Subscribe to my channel for more NFL content from me. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.